Welcome back to another Explainer. Today we are diving into something truly fascinating. We're looking at a lecture that offers a highly unique ideological lens on a deeply human experience, which is sudden spousal bereavement. Usually we look at grief purely through a psychological or medical framework, right? But the source material we're unpacking today presents a really complex spiritual philosophy. It outlines these unseen energetic imbalances, karmic duties, and even massive generational missions that actually govern sudden loss. It's a highly structured, systemic way of viewing tragedy, and we are going to break down its logic step by step. Okay, so let's dive right into this. The source material begins by posing a really profound question. When a sudden, unexpected tragedy strikes a family, specifically the sudden loss of a spouse, why does it actually happen? And, maybe even more importantly, what is the unseen, energetic, and spiritual weight that's left behind for the survivor? The core premise we're exploring today is that these present tragedies aren't viewed as just random, terrible accidents. Instead, they're the results of unseen energetic imbalances and unfulfilled spiritual duties between partners. To make sense of this, we're going to follow a logical timeline of karma across 5 areas. First, the hidden cause of bereavement. Second, the spiritual clash between spouses. Third, the task given to the left behind. Fourth, releasing the spirit's attachment. And finally, the path to liberation for all.
All right, starting us off with part 1, the hidden cause of sudden bereavement.
Get this. The source material makes some very specific claims about the relational dynamics that happen right before a tragedy, and it starts with a massive statistical claim right out of the gate. According to the lecture, when you look at sudden, unexpected spousal deaths, men account for 97% of those losses. Now, whether you look at that number as literal or metaphorical, the speaker uses it brilliantly to immediately grab our attention and build curiosity. I mean, why is the male partner the one who is suddenly lost in the vast majority of these specific cases? To answer that, the lecture points to a deeply rooted historical and energetic imbalance.
The lecture explains this by bringing in a really powerful cultural anchor. It references a variation of an old traditional proverb. If a woman harbors malice, which literally translates to if she harbors an axe in her heart, frost falls in June. The source explains that historically, men have physically or socially confined women, basically suppressing their energy. And here's the thing, when a woman feels completely trapped and suffocated, that suppressed energy doesn't just disappear into thin air. It builds up into a massive, unseen destructive force. And this suppression of female energy, that is identified as the foundational, hidden cause of the sudden tragedy.
Which leads us right into part 2, the spiritual clash between spouses. Diving into the unseen mechanics right before a loss, the lecture highlights a major contrast: physical dominance versus unseen spiritual power. The philosophy asserts that while the husband might wield earthly control or physical dominance, the wife possesses this immense, unseen spiritual power. Plus, the philosophy claims that absolutely everyone has guiding spirits attached to them. So when the husband suppresses the wife, he isn't just suppressing her. He is actively suppressing the incredibly powerful spirits backing her. And this suppression triggers what the lecture calls Shin-Sa-Um, which literally means a clash of spirits. Think of it as this invisible, fatal battle between the guiding spirits of the husband and the suppressed spirits of the wife. So the crucial takeaway here is that according to the lecture, the husband is, quote-unquote, sent away because he loses this hidden spiritual clash. He basically failed to harmonize with his partner and instead tried to control her, which leads to this huge energetic explosion where his spirits are completely overpowered. The tragedy is framed as an inevitable cosmic correction. Moving on to phase 3, the task given to the left behind. Shifting our focus to the immediate aftermath of the loss, the source talks about the highly specific, action-oriented spiritual work that is now required of the surviving spouse. It introduces this vital concept called Iop Jong Somial, or karmic clearing. In this framework, the death isn't just viewed as a tragic end. It's seen as a severe transfer of duties. Spouses are brought together to clear their combined karma. If one partner fails and is sent away, that shared karma doesn't just vanish. Nope, it is entirely transferred to the survivor. So the surviving wife must now step out of her confinement and actively erase this shared spiritual debt through personal growth and taking on their combined earthly duties. So, practically speaking, what does this karmic clearing actually look like? Well, the lecture outlines 4 practical steps. First, the survivor has to objectively acknowledge her role in the outcome, recognizing that the tragedy stemmed from their shared inability to harmonize. Second, she has to step out of any remaining confinement and really engage with the world. Third, she needs to take over the unfinished duties her husband left behind. And fourth, she must use her actions to broadly benefit others. The source is actually quite blunt here. It explicitly advises against getting stuck in prolonged, paralyzing grief. Instead, the survivor has to keep a cool head and basically get right to work.
Okay, part 4, how to release the spirit's attachment. To understand the ongoing interaction that the source claims happens between the living spouse and the deceased, the lecture uses this brilliant comparison between gravity and attachment. Just as gravity is the fundamental force binding objects in the physical material world, attachment is the tension binding souls in the spiritual realm. The husband spirit doesn't just happily float off to an afterlife. It remains tied to the earthly plane, heavily burdened by their unfinished shared mission. He is literally held back by spiritual attachment, just as strongly as gravity holds you and me to the ground.
Because the spirit is hovering around with all this tense attachment, it can actually block the living spouse's progress. So the lecture provides a really actionable framework to release this tension. Step 1, acknowledge your role. Step 2, commit to deep study and good deeds. Step 3 is fascinating. You have to communicate this mission directly to the spirit. The source says you literally have to tell the spirit, I will work hard to clear our karma, so please help me. And step 4, upon hearing this, the spirit releases its tense grip. And what's wild is the lecture claims that once the spirit relaxes, earthly tasks suddenly become way easier for the survivor because the spirit shifts from being a hindrance to an active helper. And finally, Section 5, the path to liberation for all. Let's zoom way out here for a second to a cosmic scale. The lecture reveals this grand theory that spouses are actually part of a multi-generational team. We aren't just doing this for ourselves. We are bound together in a 3-generation cycle to achieve Haital, which is ultimate mutual liberation. Generation 1 sets the foundational path. Generation 2 expands the spiritual work. And Generation 3 operates the accumulated energy to finally break the karmic cycle and achieve liberation. The source warns that if we fail to understand this, we just repeat the cycle endlessly, building up tension rather than ever actually moving towards spiritual freedom. So, what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to end on. Whether you view this as literal spiritual truth or just a profound metaphor for human relationships, it forces us to ask, what lingering attachments are holding you back in your own life? And how can your present actions, your dedication to personal growth and harmonization, free not just you, but also the people connected to you? By taking responsibility for our shared energy, perhaps we all take a step closer to our own liberation. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.